Hello everybody, welcome back to the show. Unfortunately, I am going to be subjecting you to an awful video today. It's from none other than Lord Farquaad himself, aka Ben Shapiro. And it's about how the left is butchering children, apparently. So this ought to be a doozy. An absolute banger, if I may. So I'm gonna put myself in the corner of the screen, and, yeah. I'm not excited. Oh my god, why is it glitching?
Well, we now know that if you buck the radical gender orthodoxy, the radical gender ideology, they will come after you. We know this because school boards have been questioned by parents about transgender bathrooms, about the care for their own children at public schools. And the response has been from school boards to basically go to the DOJ and ask for a crackdown on parents. Well, now we have supposed medical organizations writing an open letter to Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, calling for an actual legal crackdown on people who report on what is going on at hospitals that are essentially butchering children. Because that's what it is. When you are performing gender mutilating surgery, sex mutilating...
What? Who is performing sex mutilating surgeries on children? Where's this happening? Do you have a source? Is there like a source in the description? No? Maybe he left a comment? Yeah, no. Okay. And people just believe him. I'd love to see a source, that confirms that this is happening. Because until then, I'm not just gonna take your fucking word for it. Like, I'm sorry. But facts don't care about your feelings, Mr. Shapiro. I get that your feelings don't care about facts either, but I'm gonna go with what the facts say over what your feelings say. So, cry about it all you want, little man. Hello, is it gonna play?
Surgery on children. What you are doing is butchering them. When you're injecting small kids with puberty blockers, pretending that has no long-term impact without any evidence...
It doesn't. Also, I'm gonna put him on normal speed, because he's Ben Shapiro. I mean, you can literally look at what the CDC says. Are puberty blockers dangerous? Let's see. Puberty blockers are considered to be very safe overall. We are not sure if puberty blockers have a negative side effect on bone development and height. Research so far shows that the effects are minimal. So yeah, basically they're pretty safe. It's like worst case scenario, like, oh no, they make you a little bit shorter, and you might end up looking like Ben Shapiro. But that's like, I mean, looking like Ben Shapiro is bad, but being short isn't, so it's not that big of a deal, you know? I've never taken puberty blockers, but I'm 5'6", I'm doing okay. Then again, I am a femboy, so that makes it a little bit easier for me. Can puberty blockers cause infertility? Puberty blockers are falsely claimed to cause infertility and to be irreversible despite no substantiated evidence. Fuck, I can't even read. The dominance of the infertility narrative, usually focused on childbearing ability, perhaps reveals more about conservatives' commitment to women's role as child bearers. This couldn't be any closer to the truth. This is spot on. What about sperm? Oh wow, what's this? Okay, so it doesn't affect fertility. So if he ever argues that, then, yeah. What are the possible side effects? Okay, let's see here. Okay, first of all, in order to even begin taking puberty blockers, a child must show a long-lasting and intense pattern of gender nonconformity or gender dysphoria, have gender dysphoria that began or worsened at the start of puberty, address any psychological, medical, or social problems that could interfere with the treatment, have entered the early stage of puberty, and provide informed consent. Particularly when a child hasn't reached the age of medical consent, parents or other caretakers or guardians must consent to the treatment and support the adolescent through the treatment process. So, I don't see what the issue is. Yeah, it just pauses puberty, providing time to determine if a child's gender identity is long-lasting. And, yeah, this is not a problem. GnRH, analog treatments for children are prescribed, administered, and monitored by a pediatric endocrinologist. I'm good at pronouncing words, trust me. Almost as good at pronouncing words as Ben Shapiro is at lying. The medication is typically given as injections, either monthly or every 3 weeks, blah, blah, blah. And the implant typically needs to be replaced every 12 months. Okay. Okay. Your child will take regular blood tests to see how effective it is, and they will be monitored for any side effects. So, what are the possible side effects? These awful side effects. Injection site swelling. If that happens, you just stop injecting it. Weight gain. I mean, yeah, sure. That could be an issue for some specific people. If I gained weight, I'd be fine, for instance. I've always been really skinny. Hot flashes. Yeah, that would be pretty bad. For a day. Headaches. Yeah, again, that would be bad for a day. The long-term effects that it has, okay. Growth spurts, bone growth and density, and future fertility, depending on when pubertal blockers are started. Okay, that's interesting. So, here it says it might have long-term effects on that. Now, that's interesting. Bone density, I know that bone density goes back to normal after you stop taking the puberty blockers, whether you go through normal puberty, decide you're not trans, or decide that you are, and go on HRT. So it's only while you're on puberty blockers that there's an actual, loss in bone density. It comes back. So bone density is also checked periodically. So if it's a concern, they might prescribe a different medication. So yeah, early in puberty, they might not develop enough penile and scrotal skin for certain gender-affirming genital procedures such as penile inversion vaginoplasty. There's still alternatives. Letting puberty beyond one's peers can be stressful. Your child might experience low self-esteem. Now, if a kid doesn't want to be on puberty blockers, they're not going to be. And if a kid is willing to just not go through puberty, if it means that they don't have to go through the wrong puberty, they probably have some severe gender dysphoria. These aren't just any, random kids where the doctors are like, oh, here you go, just start puberty blockers and then go on HRT a week later. That's not what's happening. And I think that it is very dishonest for Ben Shapiro to suggest that it is. This is why I don't like Ben Shapiro. I used to, because, yeah, I guess he seemed smart at one point. This was years ago, though. And my opinions have changed. Because I actually understand how politics work now. So, yeah, this isn't just a kid is slightly feminine or wants to or a little boy wants to wear a dress and then it's like, here you go, take the puberty blockers. That doesn't happen. The kid themselves has to agree to it. Like, it's not just the parents or doctors forcing them to do it. And if they're willing to not go through puberty, even though that's difficult, that just goes to show how difficult it would be for them to go through their, like, natural puberty. So, I don't see why that's an issue. But that's a whole tangent. So, I think there's, like, I think for guys, okay, so could be used to stop that. So basically, it's used to stop undesired secondary sex characteristics, is what it really does. But again, they have to be careful with the way they use it. But if they're not, hypothetically, if they're not, then that says nothing about trans people and everything about the whatchamacallit, the fucking medical institutions. Then, like, and that would be a broader problem, because I will agree that overprescribing stuff is a problem with medical institutions, but that's not exclusive to trans people. Let's continue. There's so much to unpack, I think, at least so far.
Maybe back that notion. You are butchering the kids. And the fact that you have so many of these hospitals that are now doing this, that are treating this as though this is standard of care. It's not medicine. It is ideology, pure and simple, because the data is not there. It is simply that easy.
Okay, Mr. Shapiro. I'd like to see your data. What data are you using to come to conclusions? Because surely, as someone who really cares about the facts, you would have some sort of, like, source that proves this. Because there is data, and it suggests that gender-affirming care is a good thing. And, okay, let's just continue. I'm gonna look at some sources, but I don't want to do that the entire fucking video, because we'll be here for, like, 3 hours at this rate.
Data do not exist for this notion. The vast majority of kids who express some sort of gender confusion will desist from that over time. The vast majority at this point of gender confusion is being driven by societal mania, promoting.
No. Not really. Maybe there are, like, a few weird edge cases or exceptions where they are, but that's not a typical thing. Like, most people don't really think about trans issues, like, every day. Like, your everyday average Joe doesn't really think about trans people. I know Ben Shapiro thinks about trans people every day. Maybe he has a thing for trans people. Maybe it's, like, his fetish or something, because he seems to be obsessed with them. So, I don't know. But, you know, I don't think that most people really care. And if most people don't care, they're not going to mention it to their children, who are also not thinking about it unless they have gender dysphoria. So, I don't see what the fucking point is. Like, they have to display signs.
That sort of gender confusion is the highest form of parenting. And to immediately take a kid who expresses some sort of confusion about conformity to gender stereotypes and say, you must be a member of the opposite gender, we're going to socially transition you in school.
No, that is not happening. That's the opposite of what's happening. That's more analogous to what Ben Shapiro thinks. Except people like Ben Shapiro would rather force kids to conform to the gender they're born as. Neither one of those are good. So both of these, the straw man argument he's created for himself, advocates for conformity, and he's using that as an argument for the conformity he wants, which is fucking stupid. Like, how about actual non-conformity? Not just painting non-conformity as conformity, but just saying to your child, yeah, you can express yourself however you want if that, you know, like if they, you might not immediately say that, but if it's like they're showing signs, or, you know, it's like, maybe you have a son, and he wants to play with Barbie dolls. It's like, okay, that's totally fine. You don't force him to not. Now, I know that Ben Shapiro isn't specifically saying this right now, but again, it's not going to come up unless the child brings it up to some extent. Like, okay. Anyways.
And then we're going to inject you with a bunch of cross-sex hormones. And then we are going to prepare you.
Oh my god. I'm sorry for pausing it every 3 fucking seconds. But this is just bad. No. Children aren't being prescribed hormones. Well, unless it's, I mean, I think there are some, boys who have, like, a condition where they start growing tits, and then they can get, or I don't know, maybe they're prescribed puberty blockers. I don't know. But I don't think that anyone is, I don't think any trans kids are getting hormones, at least not in this country. Maybe somewhere else, but I don't know. Let's continue.
For sterilization and mutilation further along down the line.
Oh my god, it's like...
And then we're actually going to, once you hit 15, 16, 17...
Oh my god, it's like every word he says is incorrect. Like, no, we're not mutilating any... Nobody is having sex reassignment surgeries at the age of 15. That's not happening. There are grown adults who do that, but there aren't teenagers that are doing that. And if they are, that's fucked up. I would agree. Thankfully, we live in a society where that doesn't happen. So, yeah. Keep fighting against a group of people that doesn't even fucking exist. Mr. Shapiro. You're really doing the world a lot of justice. I want to fucking die.
Years old. Cut off healthy breast tissue. We are going to cut off penile tissue. We are going to
Not when they're
create
minors.
fake vaginas. Or we're going to carve off arm flesh. And we are going to create fake phalluses to sew onto.
When they're legal
this
adults,
is
yeah.
barbarity. It's barbarity. It has nothing to do...
When they're legal adults that can consent, yeah, sure, maybe. But until then, no. They can't make that decision until they're an adult to get those kinds of surgeries. And even if they could, again, you would be just... That would be a problem with the medical institution if... Whatever. Let's just continue. Holy fuck.
Do with medicine. But it is amazing how many of our institutions we all used to have faith in, have been completely overrun by the radical left, and now the radical...
Why? Because now they present facts that go against your feelings? Is that why? Is that why, Ben? Is it because there are facts that prove your preconceived notions to be incorrect? So, you know, to an extent that causes you to lie about shit? Like, he's a blatant grifter. Like, I'm sorry. There's no way he actually thinks this way. Actual dumbass.
Radical left in charge of these institutions is militarizing and weaponizing those institutions against anyone who would point out to what...
Shut up, ad. I don't give a shit. Die. I don't
What
care.
they are doing is quite terrible. So here is the letter from the American Medical Association, as well as the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association. And let me just tell you this. I know many, many doctors who are members of the AMA, and they do not have an alternative because the AMA is an organization that essentially provides accrediting services to hospitals. The AMA can essentially end your career if you refuse to go along with whatever diktats they're pushing. There's no rival organization that is anywhere near the size and scope of the AMA. And so I know.
Okay, can you provide examples of people getting fired for going against, quote unquote, what the AMA is advocating for? Like, what? Like, or are you just arguing in hypotheticals? I'm gonna assume he's arguing in hypotheticals, because everything he says is basically a lie.
Doctors who are attempting to create alternatives to the AMA or to the AAP. Okay, but those alternatives don't exist right now. And so that monopoly means that these organizations, which again are run by a cadre of very political, very left-wing activists, can simply market capture the medical community and then cram down a fake standard of care that has nothing to do with the betterment of children in the name of woke ideology. Here's what they say. Dear Attorney General Garland, on behalf of the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, and the Children's Hospital Association, collectively representing more than 270,000 physicians and more than 220 children's hospitals across the country, we write to urge you to investigate the organizations, individuals, and entities coordinating, provoking, and carrying out bomb threats and threats of personal violence against children's hospitals and physicians across the United States. Now, the key word there is provoking, because if you are actually coordinating bombing threats on a hospital, that's criminal activity. You don't have to urge the DOJ to investigate that. That is a criminal activity, both state and federally. There are federal laws on the books that prevent you from committing these sorts of acts. And if we are talking about actually carrying out a bomb threat or a threat of personal violence, that, of course, has been illegal forever in the United States. I'm not allowed to threaten you with personal violence. That is the crime of assault.
What does this have to do with the left butchering children? What? Is he okay? Did he write the script and then just not read it, and this is him reading it for the first time? That's what it sounds like. What the fuck does bomb threats have to do with any of this? What? Okay. Oh god. Why is it?
I'm not allowed to carry out a bomb with personal violence. That is the crime of assault. I'm not allowed to carry out a bomb threat. That is an actual crime of terrorism.
No.
The key word there is provoking. Because what they mean by provoking is telling the truth about what we do at our hospitals and driving people to object. And then some fringe characters out there go and threaten violence. And so we're going to blame you for that.
So what do you suggest then, Benny boy? Do you suggest just ignoring it and just being like, it's probably fine. They probably won't even bomb anybody. Like, are you suggesting we don't take bomb threats seriously anymore? That we just don't report on it? We just assume that it's some person just saying shit? Just for the sake of saying shit? And you do realize that bomb threats on hospitals have an impact on them. Because I think they had to evacuate the hospital or lockdown or some shit like that. I think they had to evacuate the hospital for 4 fucking hours before it was before they found that it was a false alarm. Now, do you not realize that there are people that are like on the verge of dying, maybe even on life support systems, where if they're not in the hospital for 4 hours and they need immediate medical attention, like, you just ignore the okay. But it's like, okay, obviously you can't ignore the bomb threat, because if it's legitimate, then everybody dies. So what? All right. Sure, this is logical.
You reporting is what is creating the threat of violence. And so you have to be stopped by the DOJ from reporting. That keyword, provoking. Provoking. Again, unless you call for somebody to commit...
Oh, it's our fault for provoking the terror. Was it Was it our fault for provoking Al-Qaeda to fly airplanes into the Twin Towers? Is that our fault because we provoked them? It doesn't even make any fucking sense. Like, what kind of bullshit is that? Okay. Oh my god. I don't
commit an act of violence, you are not responsible for the violence that is then committed. I've held this standard across the board. I've said this 1 million times. Barack Obama was not responsible for Dallas police officers being shot by a Black Lives Matter activist. Bernie Sanders was not responsible for Republican congresspeople being shot by a Bernie Sanders acolyte. Okay. Donald Trump was not responsible for people doing acts of violence in his name unless he actively called for the
Okay. Sure, just deny what happened on January 6th. Okay. Yeah, it's I'm not even going to comment.
Violence to be done. And this is also true of people who are just committing the crime of reporting on what children's hospitals are doing to healthy 16-year-old girls who are...
What? What are you talking about?
Now having mastectomies. Okay, and they continue. Again, they're calling on the Attorney General of the United States to violate the First Amendment here. That is what this is.
Where? Like, maybe there's something that I don't know about that he's talking about, but he's not, like, showing anything on screen. You know, maybe some visuals showing a source or something could be helpful, even if it's just, like, every once in a while. Because, I can't take your word for anything. If you lie 24/7. Okay. It's like the boy who cried wolf. Like, you gotta assume they're lying.
From Boston to Akron
otherwise.
to Nashville to Seattle, children's hospitals, academic health systems, and physicians are being targeted and threatened for providing evidence-based healthcare. Evidence-based is a real mush word here because...
Okay, then, like, you're providing really good evidence right now. All you're doing is reading something that is clearly based on facts and then just saying, no, that's wrong, LOL, and that's the extent of his argument. His source is just trust me, bro. So it's a very good source, for where he's getting all these counter arguments. It's like, okay, but just keep denying empiricism, I guess.
There is no evidence to suggest that the best treatment for a kid who expresses some level of gender nonconformity is to pretend they are a member of the opposite sex. And
it's not just some level of gender nonconformity. It has to be consistent. And then they have to show signs of gender dysphoria as soon as they start puberty. And it has to be consistent from there. It's not just somebody is like, oh, I just want to wear a dress, and then it's like, it's time for you to take puberty blockers, Jimmy. And then a week later, it's like, okay, it's time to inject you with HRT. Like, no, that is not happening. What world do you live in, Benny boy? Because I don't think we live in the same fucking reality. Like, he's actually fucking deranged. Like, I knew he was bad, and he had gotten worse, but I didn't realize he was this insufferable. Holy shit. This is embarrassing.
And then move them onto the path towards sterilization. These attacks have not only made it difficult and dangerous for institutions and practices to provide this care, they've also disrupted many other services to families seeking care. In one hospital, a new mother was prevented from being with her preterm infant because the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit was on lockdown due to a bomb threat. Children's hospitals across...
Okay. This isn't an argument against trans people. This is an argument against making bomb threats. There is no justifiable reason to make bomb threats. Like, what? So, should we just, like, submit to the will of crazy people that make bomb threats? Like, is that what you're suggesting? Like, what? Oh, no. No, it's our fault, because we did things that some people that are extremists don't like, causing them to make bomb threats. That's our fault. Okay. I guess Bush did 9/11, unironically. that logic. Fucking, it wouldn't surprise me if
across the nation have substantially increased security, in addition to working with local and federal law enforcement, both on their main hospital campuses as well as across their ambulatory delivery sites in order to ensure the safety of patients, families, and medical staff who work there. In addition, some...
Good. That's a good thing. Why is he reading that?
Providers have needed 24/7 security. Children's hospitals and their medical staffs continue to face increased threats via social media, including to their personal accounts, coupled with harassing emails, phone calls, and protesters at healthcare sites. There's elevated and justifiable fear among families, patients, and staff. Now,
yeah, what it's saying is pretty accurate.
Up until they get to that last sentence, you're thinking, okay, those are all criminal acts, right? If you call in a bomb threat to a neonatal intensive care unit, and kids can't actually get the care that they need at the ICU, well, obviously it's a crime. But you're now lumping that together with protesters at healthcare sites.
No. It's just giving a list of the bad things that people are doing. You do realize that talking about something that's really bad, like super bad, like bomb threats, and talking about something slightly, or well, a lot less bad, like harassment, you do realize that mentioning these things are not mutually exclusive. You can mention both of them in the same article. That's crazy, I know. Everything must be of equal caliber.
So if somebody shows up with a placard outside the transgender child care unit over at Vanderbilt University, then this is now equivalent to issuing a bomb threat? It's the equivalent to threatening to shoot a doctor?
No. Did they say that? Again, you're just making assertions and arguing against points that nobody has ever made. I mean, okay, maybe there's some crazy person out there who has made that point, but that's not what the fucking article is saying. Like, what are you talking about? He's fucking deranged. Holy shit.
That is what the AMA, the AAP, and the Children's Hospital Association are essentially saying.
No,
and to make that perfectly clear, they get to the next paragraph. Quote, these coordinated attacks threaten federally protected rights to healthcare for patients and their families. The attacks are rooted in an intentional campaign of disinformation, where a few high-profile users on social...
And why would you care, Ben? I thought you didn't like public healthcare. What's going on?
Media share false and misleading information targeting individual physicians and hospitals, resulting in a rapid escalation of threats, harassment, and disruption of care across multiple jurisdictions. Our organization...
So, yeah, that is a bad thing. Ben, I don't think you understand that describing things like, hey, there are people harassing individual physicians who have done nothing wrong. I don't see why that's a problem to mention it in the same article that includes people making bomb threats. Like, again, there's just no logic being used. You know, for the guy who preaches about logic and reasoning, or he used to preach about that, I don't know if he still does, he sure is one illogical motherfucker. Holy shit. Oh, God, he's... honestly... might be
Patients have called on technology companies to do more to prevent this practice on digital platforms. We now urge your office to take swift action to investigate and prosecute all organizations, individuals, and entities responsible. Okay, so...
Well, harassment could also include doxing and swatting. Like, if people are on 4chan or Kiwi Farms, well, it wouldn't be Kiwi Farms anymore, but if people are on those types of sites and they're finding the personal information of individual physicians and doxing them and then using that to harass them and potentially threaten their safety, because once that shit is out there, it's like anybody can get that information. So any transphobe or, like, you know, someone who's fucking more deranged than Ben somehow, can just swat them, which is fucked up. Like, this is not Like, harassment doesn't just mean somebody called you a butt face on Twitter. That's not what they mean when they say harassment. So, yeah, please shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. Holy fuck. This is so sad.
That is an amazing, amazing statement. That paragraph is just incredible. I mean, we all know who they're talking about here, right? They're talking about Mal.
Watch this. I can show you how to get the sweetest deals online when you shop from major retailers like Amazon and Target.
Walsh over at Daily Wire. They're talking.
And what evidence do you have of that? I mean, I'm not saying that that is incorrect, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there were Matt Walsh supporters doing this shit. Because when people at the Daily Wire, like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, stir shit up to make their conservative audience angry, the most radical people in their audience, you know, who support them, might go and do that shit. That's not to say that they're blaming Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh as individuals for, like, orchestrating this, like, elaborate plan to fucking harass people or some shit. But y'all certainly don't fucking help the problem. Like, you definitely make it worse. That's all I'm saying. So,
about what's on TikTok. They're talking about Chris Rufo. They're talking about me. They're talking about anyone who talks about these issues on the regular. Anybody who...
No? Whatever. Just go
just
on.
Plays audio of members of these children's hospitals talking about what they do to kids. If you just play the audio, this amounts to sharing false and misleading information targeting individual physicians and hospitals.
I mean, I'd like to see what videos he's talking about. To, you know, could you, like, you can't make a specific claim and then treat it like it's a broad statement that should be taken as fact. Like, you can't treat it as, like, some sort of fucking moral axiom where it's like, yes, we just accept that it's truth because it would be too difficult and complicated to not assume it's truth. It's like, no, this isn't, like, you can just show a fucking video? Like, whatever.
Resulting in rapid escalation of threats. Again, notice how they're not actually drawing the line between I report on a thing and then the threats occur. They're not saying that I provoked the threats in the sense that I actually called up somebody and told them to make a threat, or that I called myself to make the threat, or that I told somebody that threats are a good thing. They're saying that by reporting on a topic.
No, that's not what they're saying. And again, they didn't specify you or Matt Walsh or any other fucking mentally deranged grifter. They didn't mention any names. And it is possible to stir shit up without directly saying shit. I would use January 6th as an example of this. Of, you know, it's like, well, you can indirectly send messages that are very obvious, but obviously you're gonna deny that whole thing because you're fucking delusional and or a grifter.
You have now created the threat, which, by the way, ends virtually all journalism in the United States. It's hard to think of a story that does not result in some additional risk to the target of a story. Like, literally pick a political story, any of them. The most anodyne political story. Let's say, for example, how the media are going after Ron DeSantis in Florida right now over his handling of Hurricane Ian. Well, they keep...
I think he's I don't know about that whole thing, but I can understand. There are other reasons people don't like him, but we're not going to get into that right now. But there are definitely valid reasons to despise the man. But this would be
keep
a
lying. I mean,
video.
they keep saying that Ron DeSantis is doing a terrible job based on no evidence. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. Is that
not no evidence.
Heightening the risk to Ron DeSantis? If somebody took a pot shot at Ron DeSantis on the basis of that information, would CNN be responsible? How exactly does that work? Now, what if we're actually telling the truth about what's happening? See, the thing is, they're angry.
Well, the problem then is everything that comes out of your mouth, or at least most things that come out of your mouth, are lies. So when you lie more than you tell the truth, people are going to have emotional reactions if they believe the lies, as if they are fact. So when you spread misinformation, like you do on the Daily Wire, yeah, people are gonna form their opinions off of that, and their opinions are what lead to them making certain judgments. And those judgments might not be good. That's not to say Ben Shapiro is personally responsible for what they do, but I will say that Ben Shapiro is actively doing everything not everything he can, but he's actively making the world a worse place. Same with Matt Walsh. Same with any of the shitters who work at the Daily Wire. Like, they're all making the world a worse place by spreading their bullshit.
Because the truth is being told about what is happening at these children's hospitals, about the fact that the AMA and the AAP are not protecting kids. They're damaging children by buying...
No, they're not.
...into a completely evidence-free and, in fact, anti-evidence-based...
Oh, isn't that ironic? If you like evidence so much, why haven't you provided a single source? It's like there's nothing to even argue against. Because he's just making shit up.
Care system driven by politically motivated organizations like WPATH, which is an activist organization, or GLAD, an activist organization, or the Trevor Project, which puts out routinely bad data, skewed...
Yeah, sure. I'd like to... I'll look that up. Does the... fuck, I can't spell today. Does the Trevor Project... have good statistics? Okay, wait. This is a bad way to... I want to find a source that isn't the Trevor Project. Charity Navigator. Okay, this could be good. Wow. Financial 99.17. Accountability and transparency. Wow, 100 out of 100. That's crazy. I don't know where they're getting... I think, alright, Charity Navigator, looks to confirm on the Form 990 that the organization has these governance practices in place. Okay, that's... Okay, I think transparency. Okay. That's financial stuff. Policies? I don't know. Yeah, okay, I can't... Okay, this isn't helpful. Does the Trevor Project, skew statistics? I don't see anything. Okay. God, I don't feel like reading this entire thing. Continue to expand, blah, blah, blah. Collecting data is important. Okay. Confidential, okay. Should identify. Okay. But this isn't... I don't think this is what I'm looking for. John Oliver. Who is John Oliver? Badly botches the gender-affirming care debate. An episode, blah, 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 for minors. Who's uninterested in doing actual investigative reporting. Timing is no confidence. I'm getting sidetracked. Okay, this is... What? Okay. This is not worthwhile. I don't... Okay, well, I don't see anything, so... I'm gonna guess that Ben Shapiro's source here is his own asshole. Because that's where he pulled it from. Holy fuck. Like... He's just lying. Like, I don't
Data.
see them doing that.
Right? They take bad science, and
You would think that somebody would have reported on that by now.
then they craft that into some sort of narrative promoted by medical associations. And if you report on this, then they say that the DOJ should crack down.
Would you like to say where the bad science is? You haven't provided any substantial arguments for this. You're just making assertions at this point.
On you. They're openly saying that they are calling on big tech to crack down on anyone who dissents from the prevailing nonsense that they continue to purvey.
That's a very broad statement, and I don't think that that's what is happening at all. Is big tech fuck, I can't speak. Is big tech censorship bad? Yes, it is a problem. But Ben Shapiro, I mean, he's all for the free market, so he should believe that that it's actually within the rights of the corporations to do that. Because at the end of the day, that is how a completely capitalist society functions, is the corporations do everything in their own self-interest. That's why we need government regulations to prevent them from doing that. So, at the end of the day, you know, this would actually be a good argument if you're in favor of socialism, maybe. But whatever. It's like, yeah, socialism would solve that problem.
Quote, our organizations have called on technology companies to do more to prevent this practice on digital platforms. What is this practice? Reporting, playing their own tapes for them. And don't you trust the AMA or the AAP on this sort of stuff? You can't even trust the fact checkers on simple things like, did Kamala Harris say that Hurricane Aid would be passed off on the...
Fact checkers? You mean like Ben Shapiro? Yeah, he really checks his facts. Yeah, sure. You would think that there would at least be some discourse, and like articles written on shit like what he said about the Trevor Project using bad statistics and fake science. Why has nobody written about that? Why aren't there any scientists saying anything? Oh, is it because they're all being censored? No, that's fucking bullshit. They're not. If they're being censored, why is Ben Shapiro not being censored? Why? Then again, I think Ben Shapiro is a great reason to not be conservative. You know, people that think like him honestly push everyone towards the left. So maybe he has a point. Maybe there's a grand conspiracy to only keep dumb conservatives who make dumb fuck arguments like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, and then remove all the smart conservatives from social media. Like, if that's the only explanation I can come up with, which is basically just a bunch of conspiracy theory shit, which isn't based in reality. I just think it's funny.
Basis of equity. And literally, she said that over the last 48 hours, and every fact-checking organization then came out and said she was not saying that. So we are all being gaslit.
Hold on, what?
Then cast off on the basis of equity. And literally, she said that over the last. Did Kamala Harris say that Hurricane Aid would be passed off on the basis of equity? And literally, she said that over the last 48 hours, and every fact-checking organization then came out and said she was not saying that. So we are all being gaslit, and we now have.
I mean, yeah, I guess Ben Shapiro's audience is being gaslit by Ben Shapiro himself. That doesn't really say much. But I don't know about that situation, so I'm not going to comment on it, but I'm going to assume that whatever Ben Shapiro is saying is bullshit, because I would be, I would be dumb to assume that he's telling the truth, because he usually doesn't. But, or maybe he is, but he's, using it to make false conclusions. Either way, it's classic Ben Shapiro technique. Oh my god.
The institutions that are supposed to be the most trusted institutions, the institutions of medicine. If we are to talk about the single most trusted institution.
Well, maybe the reason you don't trust them is because your political beliefs are directly opposed to science and empiricism. So when medical institutions make decisions based off of science and empiricism, you don't like that they're doing that. Because Ben Shapiro knows better than all of the doctors and all the physicians. Because Ben Shapiro is always right. Yeah. But oh no, the physicians are actually all just being censored by the cabal, or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Basically just more conspiracy theory level shit. Oh dear. What is happening?
In the West, it would have to be the medical institutions, right? Because the simple fact is that over the course of the last couple of centuries, life expectancy has risen, death rates have dropped, and that means that you've had this explosion in life expectancy and in population. Cool. And so these are the people we're supposed to trust with the health of our children. But then they say that if your kid comes in, your little girl comes in one day and she wants to wear a cowboy hat, maybe she's a boy.
No, they never said that. That's not consistent gender dysphoria. What the fuck are you talking about? They have to display consistent gender dysphoria. And they have to... And they can't even take puberty blockers before puberty. So it's like, okay, what would the youngest be? Maybe like 9 or 10? And I don't think that they would even... Whatever. Which would be many years of displaying science.
We should start calling her Bobby, and then we should start shooting her full of hormones. And if you disagree with this...
No. Okay, well, I disagree with this, because it doesn't happen anyways. No one is... It's not... Oh, yeah, you just go to the doctor one day because your daughter is wearing a cowboy hat, and then they just start injecting her with hormones. That doesn't fucking happen. If you can provide me with one example of that happening, of a little girl wearing a cowboy hat and then being forced to transition, I'd love to see that, because then maybe I'd consider changing my mind. Not about trans issues, but about the medical institution. So, yeah, you'd have to actually provide me with some sort of evidence. But that would require you telling the truth, and you don't do that, do you, Benny boy? Instead, you prefer to lie through your teeth about many important issues, like this one. It's crazy. And then you cry about the left. Like, shut the
They will blame you for anyone who threatens a children's hospital. Not only that, they're calling on the...
Threatens a children's hospital. Yeah, you're right. We should be allowed to threaten children's hospitals. Okay. Yeah, alright then. What was that you said before about you not being responsible if some mentally insane person who just so happens to be one of your audience members, like, commits a mass shooting or some shit, that it's not your fault. So why is it then the... You know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna keep playing. Holy fuck.
Again, it's a letter to the AG. There's a letter to Merrick Garland.
Hold
Quote, we
on.
urge your office to calling on the... Again, this says, they will blame you for anyone who threatens a children's hospital. Not only that, they're calling on the... Again, it's a letter to the AG. There's a letter to Merrick Garland. Quote, we urge your office to take swift action to investigate and prosecute all organizations, individuals, and entities responsible. They are calling for the prosecution...
So they're calling for the prosecution of people that are responsible for bomb threats. Oh no. That's so awful. What? Okay.
Of people like Libs of TikTok, or like Matt, or like me.
Libs of TikTok who spreads misinformation, or Matt who spreads misinformation, or you who spreads misinformation. And, clearly, it doesn't seem to be that bad for you because you've been on YouTube for ages, spreading misinformation for years. And YouTube doesn't care. I'm not too familiar with Libs of TikTok, but I do know that, they were going out and fucking harassing people and pretty much slandering them. People that had no fucking following. Like, they would go find someone with, like, 23 followers who's a liberal and be like, haha, what an idiot. They think that trans people have rights. No, dumbass. They should be oppressed, LOL. Like, okay, well, that's pretty hateful. Like, I don't know. I mean, again, and it's not just that it's hateful, it's also, then they're going out of their way to like, they don't censor the names of the people that they're basically, you know, displaying to their big audience, when the people that they're displaying don't have an audience, so they can't really defend themselves. I don't see why, and again, I'm not gonna sit here and say that Libs of TikTok should or shouldn't be banned. Again, I don't know enough about them, but I can understand why they would be. So, I don't know. Like, this is a very weak argument. I'm not saying he's entirely wrong. I don't like when people get censored, but there's a point where if something is causing enough tangible harm, which it seems like, just based on what I know, Libs of TikTok has done, when it gets to a point of causing tangible harm, where you can see a direct, not just a direct correlation, but a direct causation, then, yeah, maybe then their free speech doesn't really apply anymore. Like, you may as well be arguing, oh, well, I should be able to yell the word fire in a movie theater and scream, fire, fire, there's a fire, and make a huge scene. Oh, well, I'm just using my First Amendment rights. No, shut the fuck up. You're using it as an action. You're basically using words as an action to cause harm. And that's pretty obvious. But, again, if you want to debate the reasons why someone would get banned, I mean, sure, I guess. And again, if they violate TOS, then yeah, they're probably gonna get banned. That's just how social media works. Like, I've been suspended on Twitter as well. So I don't, and every time I've been suspended, it's fucking bullshit. I made a joke that was a little bit too offensive. So I will agree that, yeah, as a platform, Twitter is fucking horrid. But I don't think that this is... you know what? Let's just finish the video. We're almost done. Because I don't like censorship either.
This is fascistic stuff. Yeah, I don't use that word lightly, because fascism has an actual meaning. But when you...
Yes, it does. And I would say what Ben advocates for is more similar to actual fascism than what someone like me advocates for. I advocate for people's rights over state rights and federal government rights. So a lot of libertarians, for whatever fucking reason, not actual, like, true libertarians, but people that call themselves libertarians, they put... their hierarchy is corporations, and then state governments, and then people, and then the federal government, which I think is pretty dumb. But that is how some people think. Whereas what I believe is it should, for the most part, be people's rights, then everything else, basically. I mean, people's rights above everything else. I guess the order of the other three is up for debate. Because I think it should be judged on a policy by policy basis, to be completely honest, where the federal government should be able to do things that protect the well-being of society. So, like, for instance, that's why, I mean, I guess corporations do shitty things, but that's why corporations, can't do, I don't know, or that's why the federal government outlawed slavery. If slavery wasn't outlawed, and the states didn't decide to outlaw it either, then corporations could just use slave labor, and it would just have to be one of the states that decides, I don't think slavery is that bad. Just one state decides that, and then corporations can then use slave labor, and there would be a lot of human trafficking. I'm going off topic. I'm sorry. Because, yeah, no one would be able to stop them. So again, there are instances in which the federal government needs to step in and say, okay, you know, you're going a little bit too far. This is in the best interest of the people for us to step in and prevent you from doing that. Same thing applies with state governments. For instance, if a state government tries to infringe upon a woman's right to bodily autonomy, then the federal government should step in and say, no, you can't do that. That is wrong. People have freedom. So I think that the federal government should act only in terms of what will directly lead, or even indirectly lead, to the most amount of freedom. Because at the end of the day, you can cry about how tyrannical the federal government is and how they need less power, but let's say that they have no power at all, right? Okay, alright, let's say you just have no government, period. Let's say you're an anarchist. Okay, well, if you're an anarchist, or, well, if the state, if there's no state, then the largest and most powerful corporation then becomes the state and uses slave labor and shit like that. So, I don't even know how I got here. But at the end of the day, like, it is the federal government's job to protect people's rights, and nothing about that is tyrannical. I'm sorry, I went on a whole tangent, because I used to be libertarian. Well, I guess, yeah, no. Now I'm just centrist. Slightly left-leaning, though. Oh well, what are you gonna do? I guess I'm a libtard now. because I think gay people deserve rights and trans people are valid. Oh my god, I said it. I know, controversial take. All right, let's finish this
Call for the actual prosecution of your political opponents, specifically based on the fact that they are doing things like reporting the things that you say.
No. If you're spreading misinformation, though, or, like, you know, harassing people in a way that causes tangible harm, and where it's obvious, or spreading misinformation, or, you know, slandering people, that's when they step in, because I feel like everybody has a right to not be slandered, or doxxed, or swatted. Like, aren't these, like, is it really that difficult to comprehend? Like, oh my god, that's so complicated. Yeah, sure.
That is like black letter fascism. How's this for a title? Ben Shapiro Show subscriber destroys like button with clicks and logic.
Oh my god, that's so cringe. Fuck me. That was horrible. Alright, let's read the comments. I'm a guy who suffered from gender dysphoria when I was 12 to 15. I never acted on it, but those were the worst years of my life. I was suicidal and had no social life due to anxiety. When I eventually came to terms with the fact that I'm a man and always will be a man, I was less depressed. When I stopped hanging around people who support mental illness as a good thing, I was no longer depressed. My therapist noticed change and commented on it. It was all professionally diagnosed. I was suicidal when I wanted to be a woman, and when I snapped out of that stupidity, I started loving life. Great, that's anecdotal evidence. This says fucking nothing. Other than, okay, if you were 12 to 15, and you went through the treatment, what would happen is you would just be on puberty blockers. Not hormones, puberty blockers, which are reversible from ages 12 to 15. And then when you're 15 or 16 or whenever you realized you weren't actually trans, then you would just go off of the puberty blockers and go through normal puberty. Like, this is such a shit argument. I was such a tomboy, sitting in, yeah. But again, if you genuinely thought you were trans when you were a kid, then you would have been on puberty blockers? And this doesn't even, like, she's not even saying that she thought she was trans. Nor do I think she would have thought that, even if she grew up today. I used to be transition. Oh, we've got a detransitioner here. Left home at 16, chopped all my hair off, binded my chest up, tried to pass as male. Okay, this is all fine. Had a lot of people prompting me to start testosterone. If that's the case, then they shouldn't have done that. They should have waited. They should have recommended puberty blockers. I guess she was 16. I was on a waiting list for a gender clinic where I was so close to cutting off my chest. Okay, well, you were 16. You're almost an adult. So I think at that point, you're smart enough to make decisions, if I'm going to be totally honest. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. I don't give a shit. And at the end of the day, yeah, she detransitioned. What that sounds like is bad medical practice. This is just, yeah, this is just examples of bad medical practice. This isn't anti-trans. This is anti-overprescription, is really what it is. Everyone involved in this child abuse, that's so vague, though. When people say shit like this, they act like the whole trans thing is the part that's child abuse. It's not. The only abuse is people that overprescribe, which isn't exclusive to estrogen, testosterone, and puberty blockers. Like, there are people that overprescribe fucking anything. The left is stressing Ben so much, you can see his beard growing in real time. Yeah, okay. looks interesting. Thank you, Ben, for taking on these fiends. Again, he's just saying stuff and making assertions. And to think speaking out against this stuff is considered violence? No. No one is saying that. I think that you are dumb if you speak out against things that don't exist and may be delusional or misinformed. But being misinformed doesn't mean you're violent. Like, I don't think the person that wrote this is violent. I think they're just dumb. And I disagree with them. That doesn't mean that they should be censored. We know doctors can't be trusted. Like, this person is objectively wrong, but he is well within his rights, to say this bullshit, right? Like, I don't think that he should be censored, right? Again, he's making an assertion, but I think it is much better to just argue against people like this, than to censor. It's child abuse by these physicians and parents? Okay. So, alright, again, that's an issue with parents and physicians that doesn't get solved by being like, well, you just have to suffer and go through the wrong puberty, most likely, if you have gender dysphoria. That's not the solution, because abusive physicians and parents are going to be abusive anyways, even if they can't be abusive by forcing the kids to become trans, which I don't really see happening very often, if at all. But they could overprescribe other medication. I think Eminem's mom, constantly forced him to, like, take meds so that he was, like, always sick, so that he relied on her, or some fucked up shit like that. That would be an example of, like, an abusive parent. It's like, okay, yeah, no matter what, abusive people can find other ways to abuse. So it's the abuse that's the problem, not gender-affirming care itself. It's the people that are abusive that need to be stopped. Okay. Physicians and surgeons are making $70 to $100, or, sorry, $1,000 for each surgery. Okay. Okay, if that's, I'm gonna assume that's true, but they're performing surgeries on adults. Like, seeing how misinformed these people are is honestly kind of sad. And just today, I got yelled at for misgendering. What a coincidence. I am a sophomore in high school right now. Were you doing it on purpose and repeatedly? I mean, if it was on accident, then yeah, that's dumb. You shouldn't have gotten yelled at. But if someone has, like, told you repeatedly, and you're, like, misgendering them to antagonize them, then that's a problem. But if it's an honest mistake, even if you repeatedly make the same honest mistake, because I get it, you know, if you're just making a mistake, even if it's repeated, I don't think that you should be punished if you don't have malintent. But if you're misgendering them on purpose to antagonize them, then I could understand. Because it's not even the misgendering that would cause you to get in trouble. It would be the fact that you're antagonizing them. And you're just using it as a means to do that. Do their job, blah, blah, blah. Actually, I think if this was worded a little bit better, I would completely agree with this. I think that, yeah, people that are, you know, clearly, like, abusing their position, as someone who can, like, prescribe things, if they're, like, deliberately over-prescribing medication, then, yeah, I think that they should probably be put away for life, in general, or at least for a while. If they're prescribing things with malintent, which I know is hard to prove, but I'm sure there are some cases of physicians prescribing things in general with malintent. They're coming for the kids. Like, it's not an LGBT issue like they make it out to be. I will encourage her to explore being male. Okay, a single father, 8-year-old daughter who's a tomboy. Yeah. Additionally, I can see the tall, gorgeous woman that she will be one day, lurking under her tomboyness. There's zero chance I will explore her. Encourage her to explore being male. Well, you don't have to encourage her. I agree with that. That's fine. But you also shouldn't discourage her. I don't think you should encourage or discourage that. I think that you should be neutral, indifferent. I think that that's the most logical thing that you can think. My 16-year-old son suffers from excessive sweating. The doctors refused to try a little Botox under the arm, saying he has to be 18. But if you want to castrate him or give him hormone blockers, they don't think twice. Again, no one is being castrated. I'm pretty damn sure that you have to be at least 18 to get sex reassignment surgery. Hormone blockers are reversible. So, and yes, they do think twice. Like I said, there's requirements. Is it this one? What are the criterion? Yeah. So, look, this is the criterion. It's not just you walk in and get estrogen or testosterone injected. What they're doing is, yeah, okay, sure. You keep telling yourself that they're doing that. It's like, yeah, I would agree with you if this is what was actually happening. I would say, yeah, that's fucked up. I don't want people to be forced to transition. That's not my position. But Ben Shapiro seems to think very fucking maliciously. I'm not gonna lie. Oh well. Well, this was fucking miserable. I hated every second of this video. I hated watching it. My brain cells are very sad. So yeah. I would like to apologize to all of you guys and more specifically to your brain cells for having to endure such a piece of shit, spreading nothing but lies and misinformation. And there are people that believe this shit. It's sad. Anyways, that's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was fun. Kind of. Some of the time it was fun. Yeah. I kind of enjoyed it. I feel like I did a pretty okay job at explaining stuff. But, maybe I didn't. Maybe I did a terrible job. Fuck, I'm tired. I care way too much about politics now. It's unhealthy. But that is okay. I hope you guys like this, raw, mostly unedited style of content. Because I want to get into live streaming, and I think that this is good practice, because I want to live stream politics, and maybe even debate people. So if anyone wants to debate me about anything, feel free. Because that would be fun. I may not have a very good attention span, but I do have some pretty good arguments. At least I think. Maybe you disagree. If so, well, that's more reason to debate me. I don't know. Actually, I prefer debating more difficult opponents. Who actually think about the things they say. Like, I don't know. Well, anyways, if you think you can pose a challenge to me, go right ahead. That sounded very passive-aggressive. But, like, anyone... Literally, okay, you don't have to, like, hate me or anything to debate me. You could be like, well, I just slightly disagree on this one issue. That's also fine. I know it's kind... I mean, yeah, you're probably a little bit on the boring side. It's like, oh, it's not even a screaming match. It's like a civil discussion. Ugh, disgusting. But it is what it is. I can still get behind that, because I think that it's still worth discussing. So yeah. Anyways, goodbye.